Hello there, and welcome to In the Studio with Donny Carr. This is episode number 40. So today I wanted to walk you through my template setup here. It's extremely important, I think, to keep organized, to have a color scheme, to have some routing in place. Especially when the kind of processing you like to do and how you like to work within your DAW. So I'm going to be showing you my setup here. I've had a few questions about my template, in particular a nice chap named Paul, so this one's for you. Let's get right to it. Now, let's start with the playlist here. There's a couple things going on. Obviously, you'll notice the color's different, so I'll show you how to change that. Just hit this drop down arrow here. We're going to go to View and Grid Color. And you can select your color right there, hit OK, and it'll change the bad boy up. I just find this a little bit more easier on the eyes. All right, so going down the list here, I have a track dedicated to a reference track. I usually, at some point in my projects, pull in a reference track in a similar style, genre that I really like, that I can compare my track to. So I have a track right there at the top for it. And then I have my sidechain triggers here. I have one for the kick. I have one on the offbeat. And the one on the offbeat, I could even move around to maybe to the 16ths or even off the grid to sidechain some elements to it to create a groove. So that's useful there. I'm sure you've probably heard many people talk about this, but it's very beneficial if you are going to use, if you're going to not use your actual kick that's in your track as your sidechain trigger, because if you do that and you take the kick out during a break and you still want the pumping effect, the sidechain effect, then that won't be there. So if you have a sidechain trigger, then that will remedy that. And you don't even need to have like a kick sample. You can use just a short clicky transient sound. I have a short kick here as mine, and I actually tend to shorten that right up if I do use sidechain compression. So yeah, that's what that is. Sidechain triggers. And then color scheme. It is so important to use a color scheme. When I started doing it, I'm so happy that I took the time to do it, because my older projects, like, I don't know what the fuck's going on. It's a goddamn mess. I can't it's so hard to like get grips on like what's going on. But when you have a color scheme, you kind of know what elements are what. Especially in the mixer, everything's kind of routed the same way. For the most part, it's way easier to go back to older projects and work on them. So this is my color scheme: drums red, yellow I have for shuffles, hats, rides, tambourines, blah blah blah. Bass is blue, and I think you get the point there. So that's my color scheme. I have a couple tracks just dedicated. I'll usually end up adding a bunch more on, but this is just kind of a nice starting point. So let's move on to the mixer. This is where most of the action is happening here. So we'll start on the left-hand side and kind of work our way over to the right. So I'll just start with the buses. Actually, I have just a bus that's the same color that correlates with all the tracks here, the synths, the Vox, and the bass, so on and so forth. I do have a separate bus for the kick. I actually like to keep my kick separate from the drums. So yeah, that's my personal preference. I don't think it's bad to bust them in with with the drum bus as well, and I used to do that, and I don't have a problem with it. I just kind of prefer to keep the kick on its own. So that's that. And first, let's talk about the pre-master here. So the pre-master is set up for when I pull in my reference track. So when I pull my reference track, and that's at the point in my project when I probably want to bring up the level a little bit, maybe add a compressor and a limiter just to bring up the level, to level match it against my reference track. And I can put that processing on the pre-master. If I put it on the master, then I'll be, compressing and limiting my reference track, and I don't want that. So that way I can avoid that. and not process the already mastered reference track I'm using for my project. So that's what the pre-master is for. And all the buses are sent into the pre-master. Now the sidechain group here, let's talk about that for a second. So this is just, I have my sidechain trigger here for the kick, which is sidechain to this sidechain group here. And this is if I want to have a group of sounds have the same sidechain settings. Say I want to have the bass bus and the synth bus both have the sidechain pump and settings, then I could send these into the sidechain group and it'll have the same sidechain, and that will go out to the pre-master and then to the master. Now I don't typically use that very much anymore, but not to say that it's not bad, not good, because it's just fine. I just I'm always evolving with things, and I just tend to not use that anymore often, but it's there if I need it, and I think it's still a useful tool, so I've left it in my template. Alright, so I've explained the buses just to correlate with, my tracks here. They're all routed to the pre-master. So let's talk about the right side of the mixer here. These sections here are just my parallel chains. So this one's for the kick, this one's for the drums, and this one's for the synths, instruments, or anything else that I want to add some distortion and compression to. Parallel compression, that is. So let's play the kick here. Now you may be wondering why I have this kick dry channel here. So if I was to just say, why would I do that? I'll just put my kick into my kick bus, and then I'll use these channels as my parallel compression and distortion. I'll just use the compression as an example here. So let's try that. There's a delay. I don't want that. So to get around that, you use another track. So your main track here, the original track, you're going to unroute that from the master. In this case, it's the kick bus, which is going to the pre-master, then the master. So its destination is the master. So we're going to unroute it there, and we're going to send it to this kick dry channel, which is going to the kick bus, pre-master, master. And that bypasses the latency issues. Look up plug-in delay compensation on in the manual, and it'll kind of give you a little snippet about it and why, but I'm not going to go super into that right now. All right, so that's that, and that's how I have my parallel chain set up. I have an other track here in case I wanted to maybe do some transient parallel processing or some reverb or something to that effect. And I have an other track on this too, and you could always add one in as you need it, but I like to have a spare, especially for the kick and the drums. And these are all set up the exact same way, so as this one. So I'm not going to re-explain those. And then on the right are just my send return channels. I have a short verb, a medium verb, a long verb, some delays set up that I like to use for builds and yada yada yada. A long effects verb that's just kind of really swirly. I'm not going to really go into the actual effects on those. I will talk about the parallel compression a little bit on the kick here. I like to use the DBX 160 from UAD. It just has a really nice punchy quality. It's simple to use. It's three knobs. It sounds good, so it is good. And then I always follow that with an EQ that's going to boost the fundamentals here, and then scoop out some of the mids. to even to exaggerate the fundamental that much more. And the settings on these plugins are going to change for every kick. So that, but they're just, you know, basically set up there, ready to go, and so I can just tweak them a little bit to fit and complement whatever kick or, you know, the source material. I will talk about that on pretty much every single center return channel here. I do have an EQ on the input, cutting the lows and the highs. And again, this will change, but it's really just not necessary to have the low lows in there or the high highs in there, especially for the kind of music that I like to make. And you know, these EQ settings will change a little bit, obviously. The types of reverbs are going to change a little bit from track to track, so I'm not going to really go into the specifics on those. Yeah, center return channels, pretty self-explanatory, I think. And then I will talk about this pitch action here. So all this is I have a pitch left, pitch right. Both these are going into this pitch group, which is then sent out to the master. So say this is to widen out sounds a little bit. So on the left, I have the sound shifter by waves, and that this one's pitched up by 10 cents, and then on the left's channel, it's pitched down 10 cents. And that just kind of widens things out a little bit. If I did want to use this, then what I would have to do is actually send it send it to both the channels and just dial in both the channels there, and that's just for a little extra stereo width. And that's something that I use sometimes, not always, but sometimes. So yeah, that's the rundown of my template. Now to save your template, you just open up a brand new project, you set up all your routing, your color schemes, and then when you have it just the way you want it, when you want to open up a new project, you go to File, Save As, and then you're just going to go to your image line or FL Studio directory. So it's usually in Program Files, x86, image line, FL Studio, data, projects, and then you'd save it in the templates here. And that way, when you pull up, and you'd go new from template, and then that will be that'll show up there. All right, so that's the dealio with my template. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope it was useful. If you have any questions about it, please get in contact with me. I'd love to answer them. And yeah, happy producing. I'll see you soon. Take care. Oh, quick note. It's super easy to kind of set these docks so they don't move with the actual mixer. Say I want to add another bus over here. I would just right click or select the track, right click it, and just dock to right. Oops, not move right, dock to right. Dock to the right. I'm such a dum-dum. Dock to the left. There we go. Okay, and then if you want to move it further, you just hit Alt or hold Alt rather, and then use your arrow keys to move the track. Depending on where it is, where you pulled it from, you'll have to do that, and then put it where you want, like so. So super easy. And okay, so we'll just leave that there for now. And then to create these little separators here, that's also very easy. Just select the track, and it's going to create a separator on the left-hand side of the track that you select. So say, for instance, how I did this here is just right-click and hit make a separator. And then you can undo it really easy. It's just to kind of, keep things a little bit more organized within the mixer.
Every time we wrote a song, that was unbelievable.